Welcome to More Than Pichu Gaming. I'm your host, Mune. Today I want to talk about card games. In this episode, I'm just going to roughly go over a few things. First of all, the origin of the card game came by Magic the Gathering by the company Wizards of the Coast, and was originally developed by a man by Richard Garfield in the early 90s. The little thing about Magic, though, is when you play the game, there's not much of a catch-up mechanic. For whatever reason, if you're behind, you're behind. And there's little to do to actually do much catching up. Likewise, there are other things out there that try to accelerate that. My first example is you play an island for Magic, and you get, you can play something like Delver's Secrets, okay? And then eventually you get enough land and player mana abilities to be able to play something like Jace the Mind Sculptor at 4 mana. But the thing is, what happens when you don't actually draw that land? Well, simply put in Magic, you can't play the card. And it's a very sad situation when you cannot. And this leads to people scooping, complaining about always getting mana screwed, and it really hinders people. And there's a lot to do, like a lot that other players can do that can screw that entire system up. They can return the land to your hand. They can, tap down your land. They can just counter your spells. It just happens. So why have a system like this if it hinders you? Well, it's an idea that you need to find that great strategic balance between your cards. Likewise, the other game that Wizards of the Coast came out with a little bit after Magic was Pokemon. Like Magic, though, it required energy to be able to do much of anything. I have an example here up on the screen, which is a Pikachu. Pikachu requires 2 electric energy to use its attack. Well, if you're playing the game, you only get 1 electric energy for whatever reason, and you pull up a different type of energy or some other cards, and have no way to actually draw that energy, then you're kind of at a loss. In addition to that, when you're playing other card games, and this is why I really think Weiss Schwarz really did a really great job, is the catch-up mechanic is the more that you are losing, the better you do. Which is really awkward because the more powerful stuff you can do. That means instead of being in a situation where, oh yeah, I only have 1 mana, well, can that 1 mana win me the game? Well, no. Can me having less life in Magic cause me to win the game? Well, probably not. Likewise, Pokemon having less energy and less Pokemon or more Pokemon knocked out, does not guarantee that anything will happen, and it doesn't even give you an advantage in any way, shape, or form, and just because you're down like a Pokemon or a land or an energy or anything else like that does not mean you get to actually draw extra or do anything special. Whereas Weiss Schwarz, the way it works is you take damage, and the damage is done usually 1 card at a time in the form of leveling up, So you take cards from the top of your deck and you just put them in the level or the clock area, and then once you have 7 or more cards, you put one of those first 7 cards into your clock, from your clock into your level. So you have this great balance. But at the same time, you have to actually be somewhat strategic because you have to match colors for cards that cost anything in particular, and climaxes, and anything that's level 1 or above. Level 0 is fair ground for any color, but as you level up, you get to play more powerful and more useful cards. And that's the counterbalance. You might be losing, but you got bigger stuff on the field. And your opponent has to deal with that bigger stuff and try to push damage through as much as possible. But sometimes, you really have to think about it. Weiss Schwarz is a game where you can literally be losing and still winning. And just because you're at level 3 with, a few damage does not mean that you're out. It means you have more powerful stuff, you have more ability to strike, and the more likely your opponent's going to take more damage and not be able to keep stuff on the field. And that makes a hell of a difference when you're losing, because you want that extra push. It is an underdog mechanic that is wonderful for the card game community. It also means that no two games are exactly the same. No two games follow the same pattern, and anything can happen, which is really great. Whereas, like Magic is a really fast game, okay? Depending on which format you play, obviously. If you're playing something like Standard, probably not very fast. If you're playing something like Legacy or Vintage, you probably only have a turn. Modern, you get like 2 to 3. EDH is a little bit longer, but it all just kind of depends. When you actually look at all of these games, like, that have come out other than the ones made by Bushiroad, you see the problem that happens to them all. It is those who are ahead stay ahead. Those who are behind don't really have much of a chance. Okay? This goes hand in hand with every other card game I've ever seen. I've seen it in Yu-Gi-Oh! I've seen it in Dragon Ball Z. I've seen it in, Yu Yu Hakusho, Naruto, Mega Man, tons of other card games out there. And by far, Weiss Schwarz is the one that's most balanced. It takes longer for the games to to get over, and it gives each player an equal footing chance. There is not a turn 1 win with Weiss Schwarz. I haven't seen a game of Weiss Schwarz end in less than 3 turns. So, I don't know how the hell anybody would win that very quickly. Even if you Soul Rush, the problem with Soul Rush is there's the canceling ability of climaxes. And when you have those climaxes cancel damage, depending on how much damage is actually dealt, that means if your opponent's going to use the level 1 Miyuki from Lucky Star, that when it's placed on the field, she does an additional 50 soul damage. That means when she's swinging, she's doing 51 damage to you. You're going to cancel. There's no doubt about it. So, sometimes the little hits are the ones that don't get canceled. So, sometimes smaller is better. And that's why it's really funny when people are like, I can't win, I don't have enough level 3s, I don't have enough level whatevers. I just laugh it off, because I'm just like, well, maybe you shouldn't be trying to side attack and save your characters when you're at level 3. Maybe you should just go for it. Go ahead and swing out. Who cares if you are doing 1 damage? 1 damage is better than no damage. So, and that is everything that I have for you today. I just wanted to give you in that consideration. Just remember, in Weiss Schwarz, it takes 28 damage to lose. Okay? That means you have to take a total of 28 damage. That is 4 levels worth. Once you become level 4, you lose. And it's not like Vanguard where you take like 6. Okay? It's not like Magic's Standard or Modern, where you would go down to 0 life from your initial 20, you would lose. Okay? There are heal effects in Weiss Schwarz, but they're usually set for higher levels. And that's the wonderful thing about these games. Variety. It always helps. Alright? Well, thank you for listening, and tune in for other card game discussion or